This is Tracy, and I've been working on my Marble Madness LSI cartridge, and it came with EEPROMs and security chip, and the flag chip's missing. So I installed 4 NOS flags, and Vernon installed all the EEPROMs, and then I even installed a Roadbuster security chip, which I verified was working in a Marble Madness TTL version board. So it's totally watchdoging, and once in a while I can get it to flash an error on the screen about ROM at address 200. And I suspected the LS244, so I removed those, of course, and then I installed sockets and replaced those. But I'm just having the same behavior, and I'm not sure where to look next. Also, my pants fell off.
Ho, 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 it's magic. You know, never believe it's not so.
From KOYR Studios in Minneapolis, Minnesota, it's Arcade Radio. Intruder alert, intruder alert. Welcome to episode 10 of the Arcade Radio podcast. Today is Thursday, March 2nd, 2017. The time is now 8:15 p.m. Central. Thanks for joining us in the Arcadosphere. This is your host, Commander Adama. I'm joined by the legendary Dan Reed and Mark Time Runner Shields, and the guest host of Arcade Radio this week and host to thousands at the Midwest Gaming Classic, Mr. Dan Lucen. Welcome to the show.
Episode 10.
This is it
this far, huh? I'm surprised.
Yeah, 10.
That's nice. That's nice.
I'm going to end it.
Was that it?
Right? After this, it's going to be over.
At 10 is the cap. We decided no more after that. Make sure you aim your voice at your phone. You're kind of covering up your mic, I think.
Sorry. No, I moved it just a little bit there. So that was totally me.
Dan Lucen, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going?
Speaking of that, let's do some short introductions. Dan, why don't you introduce yourself?
Which Dan?
Oh, that's right. We got 2 Dans. We had 2 Tubins.
I don't know how I feel about this.
2 Dans.
We can fight till the death.
All right, let's do it.
There can be only one.
I'm Dan Reed, photo on Clav. I also sell the Modern Journey arcade cassette interface board thingy that you can buy at ParadiseArcadeShop.com. Yeah, I'm not really very interesting tonight, so Mark.
Nice handoff. Okay, hi, this is Mark Shields, Time Runner on the K-Love. I'm also TimeMachineRental.com if you did something you wish you hadn't done. And Uncle Rico Van if you want to throw a football over that mountain.
I am Adam, the other host of the hosts that just introduced themselves. And I'm also...
The lesser of the hosts.
Yes, I'm the... What? Anyway.
The lesser, not molester.
He's a molester?
Oh, boy. Here we go.
That's what I heard.
Are you opening up an arcade in Denver?
He always puts his hand on my shoulder.
We decided not to do that news article.
Oh, my bad.
Moving on to our esteemed guest, Dan Lucen.
I'm Dan Lucen. I'm one of the guys who helps to organize the yearly Midwest Gaming Classic.
Did you guys hear him? He claimed that he does everything. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. I bring in like 400 games. I set up like 400 consoles, and like it's pretty much me. Or like I was actually telling you guys, I always felt kind of like, man, I just kind of tell people what to do, and then everybody else does all the cool stuff. I used to do all the cool stuff, and that made me insane. So
speaking of doing cool stuff,
organize people.
What are you working on these days, Dan? What's in the hobby related? Well, obviously you're working on MGC, but is there something else like arcade related you want to share with us that you're working on?
Well, we bought a new house. We found it almost exactly a year ago now. We bought it just after the show last year, and I'm slowly converting the basement into my own arcade. I had intended to have it done last summer, and we didn't know that the mortar in the basement was really old and basically dirt. When I started sweeping it off to clean it off and then start dropping my games off downstairs, they started falling off in chunks the size of my fist, and there was worms living in it. So I, so far, along with one of my friends, has replaced 3,040 pounds of mortar into the walls.
Wow.
And, I've moved some games down. Sega Super GT is the most recent one that I did something on. I got upgrade chips for it, which I did not even know existed until recently. I'm real excited. It's actually also my newest game. I used to work at a Chuck E. Cheese, and I ended up loving that game there, and no one else loves it because it's way too hard to figure out what you're doing in an arcade. But I love it, and so now I just found out that you can mirror all the tracks with these chips, and there's this stupid but fun old-school track on it, so I'm happy as a clam with that, and got a bunch of other games folded up here, ready to go in once this basement gets a little bit more. Well, now I need a ceiling because there's a duplex, and my tenants upstairs don't need to hear me playing pinball all night.
So that's great. So that you're kind of working on your own home arcade right now. So that's pretty cool. And the new house, that's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. And you'd think that would be enough, but no, I've got to run the Moose Gaming Classic on top of that. So, and that's not even my regular job. So
for those that are listening, that's the Midwest Gaming Classic. It's located in Brookfield, Wisconsin, and it happens every spring, and it's coming up in about a month. We'll get to that in a little bit. Dan Reed, what are you working on right now at home?
Not a hell of a week there, gents. As a matter of fact, you should know about some of it. You came over for...
That's right. I was over last weekend helping out.
Yeah, so this crawl has turned out to be quite the community project. So I got the J-Rock board in my crawl.
Nice.
And I went down to Paradise Arcade Shop, and I brought the original sticks. And if you know what crawl is, the joysticks are unique.
Yeah, they're like they're bats.
Yeah, they're weird. Yeah, they're weird bat sticks. They're almost shiny. Like the Hap ones, but
yeah,
I don't know. They're longer and made of harder plastic and whatever, but they're unique. So I didn't really want to rebuild the base of the joystick, so I went down there and tried to find a way to put the old stick in a new base, and Brian helped me out with that.
Brian Armitage at Paradise Arcade, right?
Dude is awesome.
So
really awesome.
We plug his show like every week. We plug on the show. We plug his shop every week.
It seems like we do.
So
Adam was kind enough to come over, and we started working on this thing. And then,
interesting problem. The JAMA harness you had.
Yeah.
The J-Rock board didn't fit in it.
Stupid J-Rock board is too big. So James, if you're listening, make your board the right size.
Actually,
dude. Seriously,
I would guess that the harness is not the right size either. It was probably a 1-2 punch on that. We had to file out the harness and just ever so slightly use an X-Acto knife to sort of cut off the edge of the board a little bit, shave it down so it would fit inside the JAMA connector. It was very bizarre.
So then Adam's over, and we're working on crawl, and then we can't get something done. And then Brian ends up driving over to my house, and then he's working on my crawl. And then we get the thing up and running, and the monitor's gone nuts. So then Chris Rhodes ends up coming over and fixing my monitor in like 3 seconds, which made me feel like an idiot.
Did he jiggle the cable?
No. J-Rock boards, you have to have that extra pin set on the chassis of the monitor, or it's not going to sync properly. And we didn't have the setup proper. That's embarrassing.
Huh.
And after that, my wife got a wild hair that she wanted a Frogger because we ended up selling our Frogger cocktail, and Chris Coolis is selling one on Craigslist. So I called him up. I'm like, hey, I need the Frogger. And Up Down, the local barcade here, was going to buy it. And so we got into a game with those guys, and then they decided that they weren't going to buy it. So I drove down there and picked up a Frogger. And then When Chris was here, he was making fun of my Ms. Pac-Man cocktail, and we got into a big discussion about that, and I ended up buying all new guts for that online, which ended up being bought from Todd Tuckey. So it's been a hell of a week, gents.
Mark Shields, what do you got?
Well, I don't think I can top that, but I'll try. I have mousetrap parts finally coming in. A friend of mine, Casey in Georgia, I believe, has been buying multiple mousetraps, and I'm getting his cast-offs as much as, that redheaded kid in the Partridge Family used to get David Cassidy's cast-offs. Same thing here.
Nice.
And so I'm excited. I'm going to get some coin doors and a drawer thing and an ISO, and I think really that's all I need. I have a board that I bought from Chris Gack.
Yeah.
So that should be working.
That guy's shifty.
Yeah, right.
We should have him on the show.
We should.
We've mentioned him a couple of times, and I think he'd be a good guest. We should have him on.
He is a pretty funny guy. I like him a lot.
Done. Let's see what else. And so on Friday, a Craigslist ad came up. In 10 minutes, I'd called him. And what's funny is that he'd put in the phone number was wrong, but the area code, instead of 713, they put 714, but I figured it was a mistake. And I was like, well, this is one of those good mistakes. So I call and I figure out where they're at, and they're like 4 miles away. And I jump in the Prius, I hook up the trailer, and I go drive. I put my wife in the car with me so that she'll look cute and confuse the guy. And then so the first thing, he gets us into this disgusting truck and like a trailer for a big 18-wheeler that's just been parked for 30 years. And I get a Tempest and a Atari Le Mans each for $50, which is pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Tempest is missing a lot of stuff.
Oh, okay.
No PCB. It does have the 6100 tube. So and I was able to find the assembly, the XY, whatever little box that holds the flyback. So I'm not that far off.
Okay. I have
very exciting.
I have a spare Tempest board. Needs work though.
Needs work. Does that mean doesn't work, or
means it doesn't work right now? It worked when I got it, and it doesn't work right now. So
I see.
It hasn't been in a Tempest machine for a long time, so it would need to be gone over by somebody.
Okay.
But anyway, we could talk about that later.
Nice.
Yeah.
So those are my major things, grabs that I got. I did help facilitate another grab the next day at the same place, which was pretty awesome.
Cool.
And that involved 4 vector monitors, 4 vector games, rather, an Asteroids Deluxe, a Gravatar, and a Battlezone, all for $100 each.
Nice.
The deals are out there, friends.
Sounds like it. I actually kind of hate listening to you. Hey, but
I got better deals when I was in Minnesota.
Well, you have facilitated a great deal for me, which is my story is that my powder coated parts for the Pac-Man came back today. So yeah, I got the control panel sitting right here. It's looking beautiful. It's got the overlay on it. I got some fresh buttons from Brian McLeod Armitage's Paradise Arcade shop in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Shameless plug.
And I got
that guy.
I know. I was going to have him on the show again, but we talk about him so much we don't even need to. So then I got the interesting thing I did is I took the joystick housings for the Pac-Man and I had them powder coat them yellow. So when you open up the control panel to work on it, or you're going to see a nice yellow joystick.
Not original.
It is original.
History
You're a
destroyer.
criminal.
It's an original.
You're a criminal.
Yeah.
You might as well name it if you're going to do the joysticks yellow.
Well, no one's going to see it. So then the other thing I did is I powder coated the coin chutes yellow on the inside of the coin door. So when I empty the coins out, I get to see that too.
Criminal. Coin chute.
Yeah. Criminal. So, and then I helped Dan out a couple weeks ago and I went on vacation to Arizona last weekend.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about that Cobra Arcade thing you went to.
Yeah, so I visited Cobra Arcade. First, we pulled in there, and there was actually this place called Revolver Records, so I went in there for like an hour. and bought a bunch of records. And then we went over to Cobra Arcade, which was on the last show. We mentioned the list, which listed the Cobra Arcade as one of the coolest arcades in the U.S. I don't know how they rated that, if they went to 10 arcades and said these are the top 10 arcades. But no slam on Cobra. It was pretty cool. It had a really good nightclub vibe, and they had a really good cross-section of classic and 90s games, 80s and 90s games. And the owner, I got to meet him. I got somebody to bring him over, so I talked to him for a bit, and it turns out he had been scooping up games on CL for a while at Craigslist, and he would buy them for $50 or $100, fix up the games, and then often there wasn't side art for them at the time that he was acquiring them, or he just simply didn't have the money at the time or whatever. So he's actually painting murals on the side of his games, which are just... they're amazing. He's got on his TMNT, he's got a mural of the Turtles on the side, his NBA Jam. He's got like crazy art on it. And then he's got a Simpsons, and it's all hand drawn, hand painted. And normally I'm like a purist, and I'd be like, find the original art and restore it. But if you bought these games for $50, $100 and they weren't in that great a shape anyway, I don't really fault him for putting some paint on them and make them look cool. So
I know. I got a Donkey Kong once, and somebody had drawn a beautiful penis.
But yeah, so really great bar, and they have a big, huge garage door that opens up, and since it's Arizona, it's open bar, open door, and just a really cool little patio area. So it was cool. If I had to compare it to, say, Up Down here in Minneapolis, I'd say Up Down wins hands down, but there's a lot more classic selections there. They also have an ice cold beer, which is like awesome, and skee ball, and Cobra is basically a few rooms of arcades and a row of 4 pinballs, and they're all modern. So, well, with the exception of what's the one that's Mars Attacks, but it's a Return. Is it Return?
Return from... God, I own that game.
Yeah.
Mars or whatever.
Return from Mars.
Yeah,
No.
it's Mars Attacks Return. I don't know.
Revenge from Mars.
From
That's what it
Mars.
is.
There you
Yeah.
go. That's it.
Anyway, he had that. It was great. I played that. Then he had
I
Star.
literally can see my playfield for that game from where we're sitting. I can't figure out its name.
And then he had Star Trek and 2 other modern ones I can't remember because I was just like not interested because I had seen.
Return Star Trek.
Yeah, which is fun. That's a good game, I think. But
You think? You used to own one.
Star Trek?
What the? Yeah.
No, pinball. Star Trek pinball. Stern.
Oh.
Yeah, and then they had a Star Wars trilogy arcade game, and I played that, and I was reminded why I hate that game. It's so boring. I'm sorry to trilogy fans out there, but it ain't got nothing on the original Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back games from '83 and '84. So
That doesn't say much.
I don't understand that game either. And my son, who is 7, absolutely adores it. We went to GameWorks a few weeks ago, and they have like the new Star Wars Battle Pod that's like 360 view where you go in and it blows air at you and you feel like you're going to barf, or at least I did. And he could have cared less about that, which I thought was amazing. And he was like, no, I want to play this. And like the one that they had there, its joystick was all screwed up, and he was just like, I'm playing this again. And I was like, really? There's like the Pod Racer that's cooler. There's this Battle Pod thing that's way cooler, and you want to play that one? Okay.
So he played.
Yeah, I've never quite understood the appeal of that one either.
He played Trilogy or Pod Racer? Or
He played Trilogy.
Okay.
Over and over.
Yeah,
we got the 2-year-old to play Pod Racer, which is hilarious because our 2-year-old son Elias looks kind of like Anakin. So if you look back far enough in the Midwest Gaming Classic Facebook feed, you can actually find the picture of some little kid on it, and it says something about like the thrill of the arcade, and that's totally my son on that game there.
Anakin double. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, the immersive pod game that came out with that you were just talking about, I like that better than Trilogy. But both of those games have that feature where they basically just fly you down a path, and you have no control over the ship, and you just shoot at stuff. It's a shooting gallery game, is what it is. You're just aiming at stuff and shooting.
Don't ruin the magic. Come on.
Are you talking the Battle Pod?
Yeah, Battle Pod.
Yeah, we got a couple of those at the Mall of America, and
Yeah.
I
like
I'm
it.
6'4", so getting in this thing, I felt like my face is pressed up against the front of it, and it looked like a big blurry mess, and it felt like a fan was blowing on me.
There is a fan blowing on you. It's supposed to do that. I'm guessing it's supposed to blow on you to make you slightly less nauseous because, holy Hannah, for me, I love roller coasters, go on roller coasters all the time, but stuff like that bothers me. And like, I literally could not play an entire game without shutting my eyes because I was like, I'm going to puke if I keep watching this. Yeah. Having said that, it's cool tech.
Yeah. Wasn't it blurry to you? Like staring at that thing?
It wasn't blurry to
I
me.
can't see shit.
It wasn't blurry to me.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe the screens were better adjusted or something like that. The GameWorks that we have, that's in Schaumburg, Illinois. I guess that we don't have it, but down south they have it. They keep their games in pretty darn good condition for the most part, and so it played really nicely. But yeah, I couldn't watch it for long. Don't want to be 7 again.
So we've talked about what we're working on and all that jazz. I think
it's the Arcade News with Don Reed.
All right, boys, we're going to try something a little bit different today. So we're going to go through the news really quick, and then we have a top 10 list that we're going to cover in depth.
Okay.
So, via TechCrunch, Amazon-owned video game streaming site Twitch announced that it will now sell games directly on its platform.
Just a second. Chris Gack is listening to the show.
Oh, dear God, no.
And he's like, damn it, dinner started to burn. Sorry for ruining your dinner. Sorry, I had to interject there. Anyway, back to the news.
He should call in.
Yeah, well, he could, except for the phone's turned off. He'd get the voicemail. So,
Amazon-owned video game streaming site Twitch announced this morning that it will now sell games directly on its platform. This is a terrible idea. I just have to say this, guys, right away, because
it's the negative news with Dan Reed.
I know. I mean, everybody just uses Twitch for masturbation, so come on.
Wait a minute. I thought that was a gaming.
Can you do that on Twitch?
What?
I thought it was just for game streaming.
It is for game streaming.
Oh, that.
Game streaming.
I retract that.
And in crybaby news, video games are the key to world peace. Toronto researcher examines empathy games. All right, so I'm going to cover this very briefly because if I take too much more time on this I'm just getting mad thinking about it. So I'm going to cover that because it's just going to piss me off. All right, so top 21 video game stats.
Interesting.
That will blow your mind.
They're going to blow our mind. This is one of those
It's already
clickbait
blown
things.
my mind that the top 10 list became 21.
Yeah.
You better just be quiet there. I was only gonna do the top 10 because I was gonna talk about this empathy video game thing, but I'm just too mad about it, so I gotta move on. So now we're doing 21.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's do it.
All right, number 20. Global revenue in the esports industry rose an even more impressive 51.7% to $493 million in 2016 and is expected to approach $1.5 billion by 2020. How do you guys feel about esports?
I don't know, but what happened to number 21?
Oh, I'm not doing 21.
Oh, okay.
Change my mind.
Lame.
Mm-hmm.
Which stat are you on anyway? I don't even know.
Number
I
20.
play fantasy football.
Oh, okay. We're going backwards, right?
Well, yeah, counting down.
Well, actually, you don't need to count down on these. I read them, and they're in order, and they actually feed on each other.
You want to do this?
Sure.
Number 19, an even more powerful growth driver for the gaming industry is the emergence of esports. The global audience I see what you're saying here.
Yeah, they
way.
feed on each other.
Well, I don't even care about esports. Let's just go right to number
Go from
one.
the number one.
I'm curious who does, honestly. I will admit that at the Midwest Gaming Classic, there's people that talk to me about it, and they're like, "Oh yeah," we get probably 20 or 30 sponsorship requests every year, and they're like, "Yeah, if you pay us $1,000, we'll wear your shirts." And I'm thinking to myself, first of all, we don't really have $1,000 ever. Second of all, what will you wearing my shirts get me back? I don't get it. Who is watching this? I know literally thousands of people who are gamers, and I'm not sure who's watching it. And so I'm not meaning this as a knock. So if someone's listening to this and going "Wow, that Lucen guy is a real jerk," that's not what I mean. But email me and tell me what it is that you like about this, where you're doing this and stuff like that. Because when Nintendo revealed the Switch, they had them walking out into an arena and putting down their Switches on the table and being "Yeah, we're gonna fight." And I was thinking where's this arena and who cares?
Right.
I've never seen that happen.
American Gladiators.
We actually a few years ago, we there's an arena in downtown Milwaukee, and as a cross promotion for the show, we did Guitar Hero on the big screen in the middle of the arena, which I thought was amazing. And it was interactive enough because it's Guitar Hero, so it's like an arcade game. And I believe that approximately 2 people in the entire arena cared. So like, I just don't know where this market actually is. I'm kind of curious to hear more about it. I'd love to know more about it because I like to understand parts of gaming that I really don't understand. And I keep hearing this, like, oh yeah. And it makes me wonder, is it like people are going on to some gambling site and saying, well, I'm betting on myself to win this game and that's esports? Because I suppose it is, but we have the Bradley Center in town, and yeah, it's an old stadium that sucks, but I've never heard of an esports thing coming to it and selling a ticket. So
yeah,
where are these tickets coming from?
Well, I think it's StarCraft, isn't it? That's the major one that I knew of, but that might have been, I might be dating myself.
That might be back.
StarCraft is both really old and I guess it's a new, recent one, but who's paying to watch people play that?
Nobody.
And how is this a $500 million thing? So
maybe
like
advertising on Twitch.
Stat that I don't get.
Yeah. Well, let's start from number 1, Dan. We'll go down to number 19 and give up.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Okay.
So there
are more than 2 billion video game players worldwide, according to market intelligence company Newzoo.
That's a lot of people.
2 billion? I don't know. I guess.
So
here in the United States, 63% of households have at least one person who plays video games regularly. 3
That's
hours
me.
more per week.
That's not me.
Well, 40% of U.S. households own a dedicated game console. Don't care.
Yeah,
That's my wife.
We all do. We all own a console, right? All of us. That are
How
on the
else
show.
was I going to play a Blu-ray? Jeez.
Exactly. Actually, that's coming up as a stat, I think.
No, that's funny because my brother-in-law calls me the dealer that doesn't do the drug because I have every new game system and like I never get to play any of them just because of my time.
Yep.
I was telling someone I'm picking up a Nintendo Switch tomorrow, and they were like, "Oh, that's so cool! What game are you getting?" And I looked at him and I was like, "Oh, I didn't even think about games." And he was like, "What are you going to play on it?" And I said, "I don't know. I was just going to put it in the basement for time being. We need it for the show." And he goes, "But what are you going to do with it?" I said, "I don't know. It's going to sit in the basement for a month, and then I'll take it out and figure out what I'm going to do with it right before the show." So yeah, it's a little bit different, sadly.
Okay. And number 3, and it's not just kids who are playing these games. The average gamer is 35 years old.
Which that kind of makes sense, you know.
That's to me.
In fact, while 27% of game players are under 18, 26 are 50 years old or older. That's number 4.
Mark, number 5.
As for gender, 59% of game players are male and 41% are female. Sorry, 59% dudes.
Actually, 9%, right? 9% are going to miss out. So, moving on to number 6.
Oh, we're going to skip number 6. That's boring. Number 7, moreover, the more frequent gamers who play multiplayer and online games spend an average of 6.5 hours per week playing with others online. I believe that. I play The Division a lot.
I play Rocket League.
I don't even know what that is. What is that? Is that car game?
Yeah.
Okay.
Soccer.
And a sign that the industry has won increased parental approval. 68% of parents say video games are a positive part of their video games are a positive part of their child's life, and 62% of parents whose children are gamers play computer and video games with their children at least weekly. Do you guys do that?
I don't play
video games with your kids.
I play Minecraft with Aiden and Lily sometimes.
Really?
Yeah. We play. Sometimes we'll just take a Saturday and we'll just like blow the whole first part of the day on Minecraft. I'll set up a new server. We'll start, from scratch, do a survival.
I'm probably going to get lynched for saying this, but I've never even seen Minecraft.
Huh. It's pretty cool.
There appear to be benefits to video game playing in addition to just having fun. One of the most frequent gamers, 75 of the
most frequent gamers.
Yeah, that's boring.
Yeah.
These perceived benefits are likely contributing to the growth of the U.S. Don't care. On a global basis, video game market. Oh, here you go. On a global basis, the video game market reached $99.6 billion in revenue in 2016, up 8.5% compared to 2015.
Newzoo again reports that. Yeah. China, which like the U.S. accounts for nearly a quarter of all global game revenues, is expected to approach $29 billion in game revenue by 2019, up from $24.4 billion in 2016.
What is that, like World of Warcraft, do you think?
I don't know. I don't know what they play.
They've been just starting to get consoles, I believe.
Interesting. So on a global basis, the video game market reached $99.6 billion in revenue in 2016, up 8.5% compared to 2015, according to Newzoo.
And that's all 50, and that's all for the Arcade Radio News. That's it.
Dan. All right. Well, that's it. That's no more stats.
No more stats. That was it. That was all 21.
I do have one more that might be interesting to discuss because I'm not sure. I don't know. Virtual reality appears to have a bright future within gaming. It says 50% of the frequent gamers who are familiar with virtual reality intend to play games on VR, and 40% say they will purchase a VR something or another within the next year, according to the ESA. I don't think this is true.
It's not true. But on a weird side note, I did hear recently that Sony has sold more VR-enabled PlayStation 4 Pros.
Maybe it just means us old guys aren't going to buy it because...
No one's going to buy it.
Dan, do you have a VR section this year at MGC?
Yeah, there's going to be some stuff VR there.
Like Oculus Rift and all that kind of stuff? What do you got going?
Yeah. We have a bunch of new developers that come and set up in some of the back halls. And so a couple of years ago, one of the more interesting VR things that I've ever tried was a place came and I sat down and I tried what was basically the original Zelda game, but in 3D. Okay. And yeah, I played it for about a minute and was so I had to kill one of those stupid red things with the nozzle noses, and I couldn't I was having big trouble controlling it because it's beta, so it is what it is. But I was like, no, I've got to kill this thing. It's too cool. I killed it, and then I literally went outside and sat with my head in my hands for 45 minutes trying not to puke.
Oh yeah.
I get so bothered by that stuff, but I do think, I don't know, it's interesting. I have people who I know who are so sold on it, and I actually, some of my background is in theme parks, and I question it because in the theme park world in the 90s, there was a lot of stuff that came up where people were saying, oh, the future is all simulators because simulators can do everything that roller coasters and other rides can do, but better. Yeah, and then you can change them out every few months. And the future of the theme park, I remember articles that where you're going to go to what looks like a movie theater and just go theater to theater and keep riding the different rides all day because they're all going to be simulators. And the park that I had actually worked at for a while, the most expensive ride that we had installed to that date was a simulator, and the simulator got torn out a few years ago because no one cared. And now theme parks are all about putting VR on roller coasters too, where you go and you get a headset on a roller coaster, and as you ride the actual ride, you can look around and you can feel what's going on the ride, and you can see what's there. And man, do I have no interest in that. But there's a lot of people that do. Those lines get really long. So I don't know if it's just a generational thing. Yeah, it might be. So, and it might just be also the novelty factor of it that, hey, you know what, this is really novel. That type of stuff is really novel. And
well, how many years
is novelty and it wears off, then it's going to be dead in 5 years again. And if it's not, I mean, you never know. It's
like 3D movies, right?
Thing.
3D movies right now. I thought they'd be gone by now, but they're still going.
All right, I'll tell you what's going on. I'll tell you what's going on, though. All right, because it's millennials have nothing of their own. Our generation had personal computers. Our generation had arcades. Our generation had all of these really cool achievements, and these millennials don't have crap, and they're trying to, find something to cling on to. That's my opinion.
In some ways, I will say that in I don't know, because the 3D movie thing, they stopped production of all 3D TVs this year.
Did they really?
So,
finally?
Yeah. I saw a thing on that, and what's fascinating about that to me is that I bought a 3D TV a few years ago. There's a longer story here. It kind of happened randomly, which is a weird way to buy a TV, but it did. And I was super impressed by how the 3D worked on the actual TV. It's so much better for me than movie theater. Mm-hmm. And it just never caught on. And it's interesting to me that I think that a big part of it is that it's hard to sell experiences like that you need to sit and wear glasses for. And so I think that VR has that same thing going for it.
Well, and you mentioned the 90s, right?
Be hard.
You mentioned the 90s when you were working in theme parks. And we talked about this on another episode, I'm pretty sure. But did you have those big, huge VR systems with the ring that kept you inside it? You put the helmet on and it you could do a mech and whatever else?
Yeah, I wasn't there in the 90s, but the part that I worked at had an actual facility there that you would connect like 20 people together at the same time, and those would work. They also...
the pods. Those were pods. Those were really cool.
The pods that you're thinking of are from Virtuality.
Okay.
And they were made in the 90s. What's fascinating about that is that there's a weird link here between this and the show, too. At the first show that we did, we were actually an Atari Jaguar show, and Virtuality made a headset for the Atari Jaguar that I got to use the prototype at the first show, and it was mind-blowingly good. But that prototype was made in the 90s, like 95, and, I mean, here we are 22 years later, and this is the first time basically in 20 years that people have actually cared to try it again. So it's going to be interesting. I think that I could be completely wrong in that my opinion on it could be completely wrong and that people just end up loving it. But I also always think that for gaming and stuff like that, it's not a social experience if you've strapped something to your head and you're not really able to see your friends.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the old school arcade gamer in me, because there's a lot of people that strap something to their heads and play their Xbox or PlayStation 4 and talk with people online. And you can still talk with people online, obviously, with a headset on and VR on, but it just seems to be less of an experience that's like that. So I don't know. I hope it does cool stuff, but I haven't yet bought in myself. We'll see.
A little skeptical.
Yep.
Well, that brings us to our next segment.
Back in 82, I used to be able to throw a pigskin a quarter mile.
Back to the Cade with
Why are things so heavy in the future? Is there a problem with the Earth's gravitational pull?
Okay, we're going to set our time circuits to March 2nd, 1982. Perfect year, actually, for throwing footballs. Huh.
I get it.
You get it, yeah. So let's first talk about technology. Back in 1982, Atari released the Atari 2600. That's when it finally came out. Pac-Man.
Oh, dude, that's a sore spot for me. Let's not talk about this.
Why not?
Do you remember the disappointment of bringing that home and going, what in the heck is this crap?
I actually think Dan
that never changed direction and the blinking and
I'm like, come on, at least simulate something from the game. It's like,
All right, I've got a confession.
Let's hear it.
Oh, no.
You loved it.
I did. I had never played Pac-Man at that point. I played this before I played the real thing.
Yeah.
And I like 2600 Pac-Man more than arcade Pac-Man. Nice. Still to this day.
Where's the hang-up button?
I was about to say I probably need to go resign from the show right now. But it's true. I've always liked that. Now, that does not hold true for like Miss Pac-Man and stuff like that. But
weird,
the original,
because Miss Pac-Man is actually better.
No, yes.
In some ways, I think
it's crazy.
No, I think that Miss Pac-Man is way better. Honestly, just the changing of the mazes, the lack of change of mazes to me with the original Pac-Man bothered me, and I actually liked the smaller grid that it was in. Having said that, I also completely understand historically why people absolutely hated the 2600 game.
Oh, man. Had to do it.
They made 12 million cartridges, and 7 million were sold, which is a lot of not sold cartridges.
Yep.
Believed to be one of the causes of the North American video game crash of 83.
Yeah. I don't know if I believe that. I think they were already on the way. And I really, we can't blame the crash on a single game.
No, I mean, it was a number of failures.
Yeah.
Although E.T. probably helped.
Whoops, sorry about that.
I talked right over that, didn't I?
I sat right on the board. It was my problem. It's my problem.
I see.
Yeah.
One other technology piece of news, Infocom released their first non-Zork title Deadline. Did anybody like Infocom games?
I loved them. I have a full collection.
Another funny side note, they're bringing back text adventure games. I just read something on Engadget the other day about how this is making a resurgence. So it's kind of coming full circle back to text adventure games.
I have a bunch for the VIC-20 as well. But I have MGC Story, brought Christine to MGC a few years back. And I got separated from her. I couldn't find her. I was hanging out with the dudes, and we were having beers or whatever and walking around. And she was in the computer museum at Midwest Gaming Classic, which is full of classic computers and like Odyssey, from everything from like an Apple II to an Odyssey II to the actual Odyssey to Commodore 64. And here she is. She's over on some Apple playing Zork. Yep. And she had been there for like 2 hours playing Zork. Go north.
Open door.
I remember the frustration of some of those games.
You know what's fascinating? I played King's Quest, the new one. There's a new one out for PS4 with my son Ben. He basically watched and I played it, and he loved it. So much so that for bedtime we have been watching videos of the original games with me, like reading them as people play through them. And he's been just enthralled by them. He wants to be King Graham for Halloween that's coming here.
They released King's Quest probably 5, 6, 7 years ago. I don't know. Time goes by so fast. But they re-released one of the games with new graphics. It was an open source release.
Crazy. Yeah. I can remember the exact place and time that I saw King's Quest for the first time.
I was never a King's Quest fan. I was a Space Quest fan.
Oh, I love Space Quest too.
Yeah, with Roger Wilco. Just hilarious, like callbacks to all kinds of pop culture. I remember thinking it was hilarious seeing ZZ Top in one of the games and all the, in jokes with Star Wars and Star Trek and all that stuff. And he's a janitor, which is even better. So, but I love that game. And then there was... Those games were sort of a sequel to the text adventure games, right? The point and click adventures, because they had
the earlier King's Quest games were you would walk your character around, but you would still type in stuff. I played King's Quest 4 at my grandpa's house, and I was probably 6 or 7 when I got into that, and I got into it big time. And I remember, like, you'd walk and you would be like, look, and then it would tell you stuff, and then you'd say, like, look ground, and it would say, like, I don't know what ground is. And you'd say, look down, and then it would say, like,
there you go.
You see nothing of interest. And okay, look door. See, like, there's a door here. And so, like, it was very much a hybrid between the two of them, and eventually they became point and clicks, which it actually lost a little bit of the magic for me when they became point and clicks and you didn't have to type in stuff.
A friend of mine,
I'm sure somebody on here is going to actually remember this. The graphics were so bad on those games. There would be an object on the ground, and like Dan said, you'd type look, and it would say you see something on the ground. You're like, well, no. And you'd say look acorn. Well, it's not looking acorn. Yeah, look, what is it? Look, anchor. Nope, not an anchor. Turns out, after 3 hours, it's a squirrel or something.
Yep. And it would be like, you can't pick up the squirrel.
Yeah.
It was just there doing nothing.
If you guys want to see something really funny, do a Google search for pick up the phone booth and die. It's a friend of mine got a hold of the text engine and started experimenting with it. And he wrote a game, a text adventure about you start out in near a phone booth, and the name of the game is pick up a phone booth and die. And there's a whole thing you can actually win the game, but everything you try to do inevitably ends up with you picking up the phone booth and dying. And it's pretty funny, actually, and creative. So what else you got for us in 1982? Well,
on March 2nd, the top 5 songs were Centerfold by the J. Giles Band.
Centerfold.
Is a centerfold. All right. Mm-hmm. Open Arms by Journey.
Crime.
That is
crime.
Let's talk about this for a second.
Well, it peaked at number 2, right? It peaked at number 2, and that is their top charting hit on Billboard. That's
crazy.
They never had a number 1 hit.
Yeah, it charted way too high.
Well, there's an interesting bit about that. So, Journey recorded Open Arms for their 7th studio album, Escape, which was produced by Kevin Elson and Mike Stone. Jonathan Cain had begun writing the song while he was still a member of the Babies, but the Babies vocalist John Waite, who did 1984's Missing You, which charted at number 1, by the way, turned down the melody as sentimental rubbish. And then Cain eventually finished the song with Steve Perry. And none of the other band members in Journey wanted to do. Neil Schon reportedly disliked the song because it was so far removed from anything Journey had ever attempted to record before, and they were kind of afraid of it. But it actually, I think it's partially responsible for getting a lot of people interested in Journey, and maybe more women than men. But I DJ'd in the 90s, and this song was played endlessly. It was just, I played it at my brother's wedding. for when I DJ'd their wedding. So, but no number ones for Journey, Dan Reed.
I'm really upset.
You don't sound as upset as you did earlier.
I mean, there's been so much disappointment tonight already.
You are starting to annoy me, creature.
We need to get
I'll just finish this top
We
5.
need to get him on Ritalin or something.
Okay.
Right before he does his segment.
I Love Rock and Roll was number 3. Joan Jett.
Yeah,
She was fine.
she was fine.
Shake It Up by the Cars.
Wait, Joan Jett, wasn't she on an episode of Highlander back in the 90s?
I never watched one episode of The Highlander.
I played Highlander for the Atari Jaguar CD.
Oh, yeah. Was that good? Did you cut off people's heads or?
It's terrible.
Oh.
It's hard to say what you're doing the whole time because it's really that bad. It's so blocky you can't really tell anything that's going on. It's supposed to be an adventure game, though. It's so close to being good, and you can tell, and it's like, man, they should have spent another month on this, but if they had, they would have just given up and not released it anyway, so, oh well.
Okay. Number 5 was That Girl.
Hey, wait a minute. What was number 4?
Number 4 is Shake It Up by the Cars.
Shake It Up by the Cars.
The Cars rule.
So are you paying attention?
I am now.
I feel like I already said that.
You said it again.
I heard it. Yeah, it happened.
But we went back to... Okay, go ahead. What's number 5?
That Girl by Stevie Wonder. Here, let me sing a little bit of it. That girl, that girl. No, I don't know that song.
I don't know that one either.
Never heard of it.
So number 1 was Centerfold at this time?
Centerfold.
Okay.
Which I really like the video for that. I think it's set in a circus. Something.
Which makes no sense.
Centerfold?
Isn't it?
No, it's in high school.
Oh, I'm thinking of a different one. Jay Giles Band. I mean, so many good songs. Yes, that's exactly it. You're right.
Mm-hmm. I know my.
Wasn't Peter Wolf lead singer of Jay Giles for a while? Or one of the lead singers? Ended up breaking off and doing his own thing. Lights out. Dance, dance, dance.
All right, so let's talk about the box
Mark.
office.
Well,
sure, go ahead.
The box office.
Well, I'll tell you. On Golden Pond was number 1 for the 6th week in a row.
Dang.
Can you believe it? The only thing I got out of that movie was the suck face. Like, I was like obsessed. Like, oh my god, I gotta get a girl, and we have to suck face. Did you see that in the film when the kid says that?
That movie has like 12 Fondas in it or something, doesn't it?
Jane Fonda and her dad. Last film that he made, he won a posthumous Academy Award for it. I think
if you would have told me that you had made up that name as a film, I would have believed you. I've never even heard of it.
On Golden Pond.
On Golden Pond?
Yeah, Katharine Hepburn's in it. She talks about the loons.
I'm actually a little disturbed you know so much about this movie.
I was watching Knight Rider.
Isn't Peter Fonda in it too, though? I thought all 3 of the Fondas were in it.
No, I don't think Peter
Wolf was on that one.
He was in Easy Rider.
I'm not positive. I don't think the Peter was in there.
Okay.
So if you weren't going to the movie theater to watch that for the 6th week in a row, this happened to be Happy Days night, by the way. Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, Three's Company, Too Close for Comfort, then Heart to Heart.
You guys remember the 2 greaser guys' names in Laverne and Shirley? Trivia time, go.
Squiggy and Lenny.
Yep.
Lenny.
Oh,
hello. Open the door.
Hello. Good one.
Yeah.
On CBS, Simon and Simon was on. Anybody like that? Anybody ever play Simon and Simon on your bikes?
No, but I own all the seasons on DVD.
I was too busy watching Knight Rider.
I love Simon and Simon.
Airwolf was on too.
Was it?
Yeah.
The same night?
Maybe not the same night.
Hazard.
It was Thursday nights.
Let me get to NBC. It was rather dismal over there. Father Murphy with Tom Bosley, I believe. Brett Maverick, which I think is like another guy named Maverick or something, and Flamingo Road, a drama. Snorer Day. That was definitely not must-see TV. But of course, if you were on PBS, American Playhouse could have put you to sleep.
Oh, I don't know if that was that bad.
Damn,
hey, you guys!
I loved American Playhouse. It was the best.
Did you know? Like,
I said
probably
Dan when I meant Adam.
On Sunday, Judge Wapner died.
Oh, yeah, but he was in his 90s, so
yeah, he was
good run.
Yeah,
good run.
He was born in 1919. Dun dun
good run.
Dun. Dun, 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 dun.
I liked it when he got mad.
What? He got mad? Oh, he did get mad. He would get
mad.
Like a really frowny face.
Yeah, he probably set the tone for Judge Judy as far as telling off somebody for interrupting him or
interrupting cow.
not following his direction. So I'm going to wind up my little section of what happened on March 2nd, 1982. Howard Stern actually began broadcasting on WWDC in Washington, D.C., and that's when he first met Robin Quivers, who he's still working with today.
In 82.
And Bryce Dallas Howard, daughter of Ron Howard from Happy Days, she was born. She was in Jurassic World, and she is fine.
Do you mean she's fine, like she's just fine, or?
She's fine. Hey, did you ever see a movie called So Fine? I don't know what year it came out with. I think it had Scott Baio in it.
No.
Was that the one with the monkey?
I don't think so. All I remember is a bunch of people walking in a parking lot.
Who was that? No, it wasn't Scott Baio. Was it?
Oh,
it was
you know what?
Chachi and the monkey.
You know what? I'm thinking of a movie called Foxes, Not So Fine. So Fine's the one where the guy has like a transparent butt.
Oh, I gotta find this movie with Scott, whatever his name is, and the monkey. What the hell was it?
Now I gotta go on iTunes and find Foxes.
Hey, guess what, guys?
No. We gotta talk to our guest.
Not yet. We have.
Yeah, no.
We have a voicemail.
What?
Yeah.
No. Nobody listens to this show.
Actually, we have 2 voicemails, believe it or not.
Don't play them. That'll encourage them to call again.
What the heck is... yeah, you sure you don't want to hear them? This is like the rare we have voicemails.
All right, play them. Whatever.
Yeah.
All right, well...
we don't have to respond.
What now?
We'll pretend like we didn't hear them.
Right, unless they ask somebody to say something.
Okay. So this one was somebody listened to the show while it was in syndication. They must have been listening on iTunes or something. I'm sorry to the guy who asked this question because I don't have your name on here, but we're gonna play your voicemail anyway, and it's for Mark. So
I love the terms, guys. That was really funny. Anyway, I just wanted to see if you guys would talk tonight about Mark's Tron pickup in detail, see what he can disclose of what needs to be done to it. So
apparently we were talking about your Tron that you picked up. He'd like to know what needs to be done to it.
Oh, well, let's see. Needs to be cleaned very well. The bottom is very sort of moldy. The inside's okay. I took the control panel off and brought it home. I have the PCB. PCB is not working. I'm going to plug it into my Tron after I give it the once over. I'm pretty sure those ribbon cables are bad. Yep. That seems to be popular as far as a failure point. The control panel needs a new overlay, some cleaning. I think I'm going to keep most of the side art. It's complete. I mean, it has a little bit of patina, but otherwise, it's a pretty nice Tron. I do need to get the joystick. I'm probably going to get a Repro. What's in there is pretty faded out. And Adam has been nice enough to give me a spare bezel. Is that what that giant part is?
It's called a shroud or a bezel.
Shroud.
Yeah.
The shroud.
The thing about the one I gave you, so the machine you bought for me had that tiny little crack in it from the guy that was doing the work in North Dakota or whatever. Anyway,
right.
I always felt kind of bad about that, and I came across a shroud at Billy Seven, actually, if you guys know who that is locally.
I do.
He had one, and he sold it to me, so I said, I got to give this to Mark. So
awesome.
It's in much better shape, and actually, the original art that's in it is perfect. In fact, it's peeling up a little bit on the edges where it used to get tucked behind the wall of the machine. But when you put it in, I think you can just drop it in. It's a drop-in replacement. I might do a little touch up on the plexi with some Novus on that one, but otherwise it's really minty.
Nice. So that's where I am with my Tron. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Thanks for calling in. We have one other caller, and I think this one's for, I don't know, this one looks like it may be for all of us. Okay, here we go.
Hey, what's going on? I hear this is the line for the Arcade Ratio. My name's Bob Zarzadek. I'm here from the YouTube. Usually I have about 30 subscribers most of the time. Sometimes it's 29, but mostly it's 30. And I'm a professional control panel technician. My question today is I live in 10 shipping containers, and they're all lined up behind a Walmart. Well, forget that they're behind a Walmart, especially if you work for Walmart. Don't even remember that I said that. But the real question I have here today is what's the ratio of arcade games that I can have per shipping container. Okay, so feel free to talk amongst yourselves. Thank you for this arcade ratio service. It's super convenient for me. Really helps a lot.
Arcade
Talk to you later.
ratio.
Zarzadek out.
Zarzadek out.
Zarzadek, you weirdo.
What a punk.
Wow.
Do you think he really thought we were a ratio service?
Maybe he just doesn't like math or something. Or
Zarzadek doesn't seem too bright to me. Do you know him personally, Mark?
I've never heard of the gentleman.
Well, let's move on.
Oh, man, and I was ready with stats to answer that one, too.
Be our guest. Be our guest. Put our service to the test.
That's you, Dan Lucen. Welcome to the show.
Awesome, and I'd even talked over my own intro, so that's perfect.
Well, that's
The timing was perfect.
That's how we work.
Yeah, it was. I actually was trying to stop myself from giggling on air because I didn't realize that was how it worked, and I was like, man, I did my own lead-in for that.
That's perfect. That's how we roll. So, welcome to the show. Give us a little bit of background on your on how you got from just Dan Lucen, daytime reporter, to Goat LLC and MGC. Give us a little of your background.
All right, I'll do the short version of it. The short version of it starts in grade school, but I'll do it as short as possible. The quicker version, God, I've said that 4 times. Gary and I met. Gary Heil is the other proprietor or owner or whatever of Goat Store with me. And we met way back in grade school. I think that we've known each other since probably kindergarten or first grade. And in upper grade school, 5th grade, 6th grade, I had learned how to program from my uncle. And so I would stay after school programming the Apple II GSs that we had at my school. And Gary was like, what are you doing? And I was like, basically, I'm being a nerd. And so he joined me being a nerd. And we enjoyed doing that for a while. In middle school, we had still been kind of dabbling with programming, and we had both been collecting for the system, the Atari Jaguar, which I've managed to somehow work in twice already so far tonight. And when we were doing that, there was a guy who was trying to create basically fan games for the Jaguar, and he came out and was just not smart about some of the stuff that he was saying. And so me and him got into a respectful debate through email, and it resulted in him saying to me, like, well, you should just stop talking because it's not like you could do any better. And I said, yes, I could. And he said, prove it. And I sent him a demo of something that Gary and I had done like 3 or 4 years earlier. And he said, you want to make games for us? And I was like, what are you going to do? And so we came up with a deal, and long story short, we realized that it was going to take us a while to get the game that we were trying to make out. So we said, well, we'll purchase and sell some stuff for the Atari Lynx, which was a game system we were developing for at the time, just to keep people stopping back. And that way they'll buy, a game here, a game there, and then eventually they'll buy our game. And so we got that stuff. And then the developer or the publisher, right after we did that, was like, no, you need to redo your website again. And we were like, we have to program this game. And basically it came down to he had investors looking for him to, it was during the internet bubble when everybody was investing in people just because they could make a website. And he wanted us to do that and basically booted us off because we weren't willing. We were like, we need a product to sell. We don't need a website. And he was like, no, we need a website. He booted us off because he wanted to do that. We started our own website. He managed to get millions of dollars in seed funding. So that's all good. Never had a product to show for it, but that's fine. We, started the Goat Store. And then along with that, because we were doing this Atari Jaguar stuff, we had found this show called Atari Jaguar Festival, or JagFest, that had rotated around the country before in different places to celebrate this console that basically 100-ish people were really into at the time. And so one of them was in Rochester, Minnesota in 1999. And so we piled into a car. It was my first road trip, and we drove out there for JagFest, and it was awesome. And we said, this was great. It rotates from the country. Let's offer to host it. And so in 2001, we offered to host it in Milwaukee. And
was that in Brookfield?
Gaming Classic. It was in the basement of the service center of a nonprofit organization that my dad worked for at the time. And it's basically, let me think, 2 freeway exits from where we are right now. Literally just off the freeway there, right by where our state fair is. And it was a lot of fun, and we had about 100 people show up, which was actually the most successful Jag Fest at that time ever. We even had people flying from Japan and stuff like that for it. Most of the people that came in were from further away, and we said, this was fun, let's do this again. And so the next year we decided that we wanted to expand it, and a guy who at the time was not well known named Ben Heck, or Ben Heckendorn, suggested the name of Midwest Classic for it, and we said, sure. And so in 2002, we returned as Midwest Classic, and we gathered about 100 people up that time, but it was more local folk. In 2003, we moved the show to a different location on the east side of the city. I can't remember exactly where. And we were expecting to have lots of people that year. We took out all this classified ads, and we were like, oh, this is going to be genius. We had 200 people show up. We lost our asses on the show.
Oh, no.
To put it nicely. Yeah, we had told our vendors that we would be getting at least 1,000 people.
Oh.
And we were break even at 1,000 people.
Wow.
And so pulling 200 people was, to put it nicely, no one was happy. We actually went and because we told everybody that we were doing this, we went to all of our vendors. We gave them their money back for their tables that they had gotten. And so we lost even more money from that.
Yeah.
But we said, like, we promised something that we didn't deliver. We can't in good conscience say, like, okay, this is fine. So that year, Gary and I had a sit-down meeting afterwards where we said, all right, what should we do? We said, well, we either need to go big or go home, because we obviously, at 100 people, we can't break even. And and so the next step is to try to go big. So we took out a bunch of radio advertising. We actually had it at the Sheraton. When we had the event at the Sheraton that year, the Sheraton actually absolutely screwed us. It's the same location that we're at now, different management though. And we again lost tons of money on the show.
Was that 2004 then, or we're talking?
That was 2004.
All right.
And so we also that year though, we way raised how many people we had at the show. We had about 1,500 people at the show that year.
Well, that's impressive. That's a big leap. That
was a big leap. But when the Sheraton basically came to us and charged us an extra $5,000 right before the show again, and then also they didn't let us put up signage in the hotel. And so the show that year was only in the basement rooms, and the back rooms where like our food and some extra vendors are now.
Yeah.
And so they were so far apart that no one could find them. And on top of that, that year, I was like, well, you know what? At least, people are going to go and talk about what a great time they had this year. And I went and I pulled up some websites online afterwards thinking like, this is going to be great. And everybody was like, well, I went and I own every Nintendo game made for the Nintendo Entertainment System except for 2, and neither of those games were there, so it's a failure. No one should ever go to this piece of crap show, and we hated it. And Gary and I were like, all right, in the last 2 years, we've lost about $10,000 on this stupid thing. We're done. And we walked away.
So that was 2005. You decided to take a year off.
Yep. In 2005, that's the show that did not exist. But what happened is right about the time that we were supposed to be having that show in 2005, we started to get phone calls from people. And they said, what can we do to bring this back? We loved this.
Awesome.
And Gary and I were like, yeah, right. Like, no, this is dumb. We're not going to lose a ton of money again. And they were like, no, like we will do anything. What can we do? And so Gary and I sat down together and we said, because we also run this goat store thing where people buy retro video games from us. We were like, we don't just want to shut them down and say that they're crazy, because we would like them still to appreciate what we do for retro gaming and buy some stuff from us maybe once in a while. But we can't keep doing this unless if something changes. So we sat down and we said, let's come up with a crazy list of things. And if they actually pull it off, we'll do it. But there's no way they'll pull it off. And so we said stuff like, all right, we want someone who's willing to take tickets all day for the entire show. And we were like, no one who wants to go to the show is going to do that. That's perfect. And then we said, all right, and it was also stuff that literally Gary and I could not do. Like, we were trying to do that in the past and was part of what was screwing us up. And we said, we want a location that's more than twice as big as what we had at the Sheraton for less than half the cost. And we're like, yeah, right. No one's going to find that. And we did a bunch of those things, and we then pushed it to the about 20 people that we had who had contacted us and said, hey, we want to bring this show back. And within a couple of weeks, we started getting phone calls back. Hey, I found a location. It's a quarter of the price, twice as big. It's like, what? Hey, I know what you were saying about tickets. So I've got 3 people. We'll handle all ticketing so that you don't have to do that.
Nice. Started getting volunteers, basically.
Yeah, and it was amazing. And what happened is that it changed the focus of the show. The problem that the show had before 2006 was that we tried to be everything for everybody. We tried to be the perfect Nintendo show for the Nintendo collector, and the perfect pinball show for the pinball collector, and the perfect arcade show for the arcade collector. And by trying to serve everybody perfectly, we served no one. Yeah. We didn't have enough content we got the Nintendo collector there, and you know what? We didn't have anything really special for the NES. We got the pinball collector there, and you know what? We didn't have anything really special for pinball. We had stuff, it just wasn't enough. In 2006, we changed and we said, look, we're going to celebrate all gaming, and the goal is that the people that come here are going to enjoy the different aspects of gaming. And if they show up and they want every Nintendo game, I'm going to tell them flat out, there's better shows for you to go to where you will see every Nintendo game. But we are going to provide something fun for everybody to do. And it changed the focus of the show. The people that come to the show now are just like, they're cool to see everything. And what's crazy is that now, 10 years after 2006, not just is literally every single person that brought the show back in 2006 still working with the show, still making it better.
Wow.
But we are now a show that if you're a pinball collector, we last year had about 250 pinball machines at the show.
Yeah.
If you're an arcade collector, we had about 200 different arcade games at the show. We have tons of alumni for those that come up. If you're a console collector, we have one of everything at the show. We were the first U.S. show to have the PlayStation Nintendo prototype shown at it.
That was cool.
We have those things, but the focus of the show still does not remain on the guy who owns 100 arcade machines and is coming to see this, because you know what? I can't really put together something that's going to be better of an experience for strictly arcade games than that dude's arcade where there's one dude in it if he wants to be there.
So was it always called the Midwest Gaming Classic, or you said Midwest Classic? Did it change at some point?
Yes, it actually changed in 2004.
Okay.
So it changed that last year before the disaster. And so we just try to put together stuff where basically now it's just whoever wants to get together and tell me what they want to do. I'm like, cool, what do you want to do? Let's figure it out. And I try to say no to nobody, and we try to bolt in everything that we can, and it's created a monster of amazing stuff that people are willing to do.
Well, in addition to like the computer museum and the big vendor tent with all the stuff you can buy, I think Pinball Life's been there a couple times vending, and you've had a couple other pinball vendors, and then a huge tent full of Nintendo games. And I don't care, the variety is, it's very console centric in that tent, but some of the cool things is there's other smaller vendors that are doing like artwork, and then you got like one guy that's got stuff from his basement and like, old Mego toys and, electronic games and stuff that, we had when we were, and I've bought a bunch of stuff out of there, and you have bands come in too. What's the band? Is it Beaker?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, there's many different bands, but that's one of them. And literally, I'll tell you a story about that part of the stage. So a few years ago, we had some of the vendors that were like, no one comes out here later in the day. We should fix that somehow. And I was like, all right, we need to think about that. And so at the same time, one of my friends who I met because of the show said, I want to step up my game for the show. And I was like, cool, what do you want to do? And he's like, well, I host a gaming podcast that also talks about music. Would you like me to see if I can set up some bands to come in? And I was like, hey, you know what? This would be something that we can do out in the tent. We can put it down at the end of the tent so that people, later on in the day will come back, and it gives the tent like some excitement to it. So it's not just like, oh, you're in a giant tent. It's like we're in a party. And so I said, sure. And he started putting that together. And like this year, we had so many different bands from all over the country contacting us. And like Wisconsin has a lot of really weird laws. And one of them is that we can't really offer anybody that comes to play much of anything, and everybody's just like, no, I want to be part of this. Like it's really a community thing, and the whole show works that way, where it's basically people that have come up to me at some point and said, I want to do whatever it is. And I go, okay, cool, let's figure out how to do that.
That's awesome. So you mentioned, you still have a bunch of people working on the show that kind of helped you out when MGC was struggling. How big is your volunteer staff now for the show?
I can honestly tell you that I have no idea. Minimally, the people that I would say are critical to the show coming together is at least 1,000 people.
Wow.
And like that sounds insane because like, how'd you do that? But for me, it's there's me and there's Gary, who are like the idiots that put up the money. And then Gary is the one that deals with all the vendors, and I'm the one that deals with fitting all the show content together. But the show content, everybody that brings something, whether it's you're bringing a pinball machine, well, then you're a show contributor. If you are bringing an arcade machine, you are a show contributor. If you are setting up a table to do something at the show, you are a show contributor.
Awesome.
We could not do the show without people like you guys helping to spread the word to other people.
Speaking of which, we want to spread the word of Arcade Radio at your show. Can we just set up a table somewhere?
We can talk more about that, but basically I'm very bad at saying no to anybody as long as you're cool with me figuring out ways that we can do it so that it's mutually beneficial and that you get stuck in some weird corner for now and are just cool with that. That's true of basically anybody that contacts me. A couple of years ago, and some people know that this is true because there's photographic proof of this, but there was talk where we had games showing up for the arcade hall before we moved the arcade hall to the beer hall, before the tent was bolted onto the hotel. And we were like, oh my God, they keep coming. We don't know where to put all these. And so we were literally like going to the hotel and going like, we're putting 5 games in the lobby. And they were like, okay. And we were like, all right, cool. We are putting 5 games in this hallway over here by this elevator. And they were like, okay. And we were like, cool. And we actually stopped asking permission at one point. And later on, the hotel came back to us and was like, okay, next year you can't put games in this particular location. We're like, all right. But like people were literally like, we were debating whether we should actually put a game in the bathroom. It was like that much. But we were like, awesome. We will find a spot for everything that shows up somehow, one way or another. And that's kind of always the goal. And as long as people are willing to work with us, we'll do it. And there is a picture of a game in a bathroom the following year that was half a joke, and it stayed there for the whole game though, because the whole show, because people who really get involved with the show love the spirit of like we're just going to come together and figure it out. Yeah. And as long as people are cool with that, I mean, we're willing to work with however it is, because the show is really not the joke is that it's what Dan and Gary love, because we love all this stuff. But the show is really what everybody else loves and is willing to do, because at this point, if you come to the show and if it was just me bringing stuff, there'd be like a couple video game systems set up, a few arcade and pinball machines, and knowing my luck, they'd all be broken because every time that I bring a pinball machine to the show, it breaks. And that would be it. But the show is really everybody else coming together to create something magical for everybody.
Let's talk about that for a second, because twice now I've brought games to the show. First year I brought... Which means that honestly, without you, the show wouldn't be a success. So. Yeah, and it's everybody though, right? You mentioned it's total contribution, and you can't get 200 games in there with 1 or 2 guys. And it's no. You know, so I brought a couple of games last year, sold both of them. Actually, the first time I did not bring a game, I bought a game from Sean Williams, Fetish Boy. He had a 280 Zap black and white game. And that's actually the first time I met you, Dan. You may or may not remember this, but I was walking around in the after party hallway, and you happened to be in the hallway at the same time. And I didn't have a ticket. I didn't have a wristband. And you're like, yeah. And you're like, where are you going? I'm like, I was going to go to the after party. And then it was explained to me that, you can go to the after party if you get the wristband from the guy that sold you the game, or however that worked at the time. I don't remember quite, but we interacted in the hallway, and you were really cool about it. You're like, okay, go in, but next time get the thing from Sean or whatever. And that after party has taken on a life of its own. I mean, so the reason that got started was in 2006, when we were first at the old location that we were at, was the Olympia Resort out in Conomowoc. We had an arcade hall, and there was probably about 40 games at the time. And one of the things that I was told from a couple of my friends who were into arcade games, I mean, I'm very into arcade games, too much so. I'm one of those people that if you ask me how many games I have, the answer is I don't know, which
I wish was not the truth, but it is. Like, I literally, the other day I was writing down games to try to figure out how many I can fit in my basement, and I'm pretty sure I can fit between 32 and 40 down here.
Wow.
Which means that I have about probably 20 to 30 to sell at some point, which I still don't know exactly how many I actually have to sell, but I'll figure them out eventually. But anyway, I was talking with them, and they were like, yeah, you know, I love the show. I love supporting the show. But the one thing that I really wish is that I don't get to meet new collectors. And we were like, all right, we should solve this. What can we do? And we said, let's do an after party where just the people that brought the machines then get to interact with the people that brought the machines. And so that's how it started. And it's crazy because I will be offered, and we are very hardcore on it's one game, one ticket. And that's how it works. And someone offered me last year $200 for a ticket. And I said, no, like, look, this is a reward for these people. If we start saying there's a line to get in and we start having 1,000 people there instead of one per one game,
yeah,
it stops being exclusive. It stops being something special. And it's also interesting because, I mean, it's true. The show is not this giant moneymaker. I wish it was more of a moneymaker because I would have less nightmares about potentially losing like my house or car or whatever after the show. But we don't have huge corporate involvement. And because we are paying for the location and like the electrical grid that we paid for is $20,000 that we put into that thing. And that's just to run the arcade hall for literally 3 nights a year. And when we do that type of stuff, it's because we love this community coming out and doing this. And we specifically hold the line on Saturday. It closes at 8.
Let's talk about that for just a second.
That did stuff party.
First of all, Brian Jones in the chat says, been doing it for 6 years now, never gets easier, that's for sure. Talk a little bit about that grid, because that's a unique thing that you did.
So we call it Doc Ock. And basically what happened was that in 2004, when we were at the show before, or when we were at the Sheraton before, the Sheraton told us, we guarantee you, we have so much power in the back section where we had the arcade at the time, you're going to be fine. And so we were like, cool. So we set up the games, and that year we had about 40 games total again. Yeah. And we had paid for a radio station come out and do a live remote where they are actually talking from the floor of the show. Radio station turns on their live remote, whole hall goes dark. Ran up to the front desk, said, we need power. And again, this was before they switched management, because I absolutely adore them now. And you guys, since you've been there, know how much they let us get away with. So they're awesome. But I ran up there and I was told, sir, all of our engineers are in guest rooms right now. I said, you don't understand. The radio is trying to broadcast right now to tell people about our show. We need the power back on. And she said, no, sir, I think you don't understand. All of our engineers are in rooms right now. And I was like, I was so angry. And so one of our things, when we came back, they actually cold called me. And it's a funny story. The lady who cold called me, she said, hi, I forget what her name was. I'm so-and-so with Brookfield Sheraton, and we were interested if you still ran the Mirrors Gaming Classic and if you'd like to come back. And I said to her, oh, you must be new there. And she said, yeah, why? And I said, because you guys are so terrible that every time that anybody asks me about a place to stay in town, I only tell them not to stay at you guys because you guys are the absolute worst. You guys completely screwed us in the past, and I have no interest in ever working with you again. And I started to hang up the phone, and as I started to hang up the phone, I hear her say, yeah, I hear that all the time. That's why I'm cold calling people. Please don't hang up the phone.
Wow.
And I stopped, and I held on the phone, and I said, all right, you've got me. What? And she said, the previous people that were selling stuff were so terrible that I'm caught cold calling people that are usually swearing at me and hanging up the phone before I get to say anything.
I'd hate to have that job.
And she said, I'm trying to get anybody to talk with me more so that I can prove how different we are as a place. And I said to her, yeah, right. Okay. I said, you know, we're pretty happy with where we're at right now, but you know, fine. And she said, I tell you what, she said, I would just like to send you a folder so I can tell the people that I work with that I sent out enough folders this week. She said, as far as I'm concerned, when you get it, you can throw it out. But I'm serious when I tell you it has completely changed. And if you ever need a different location, I would love to talk to you. I said, fine, send me the folder. We'll see what happens. She sent me the folder. The following year, the Olympia called me up. We had been doing dates that were around the time that we're doing now, I think. And they were like, so we made an error. And I was like, okay, what? And they said, well, we accidentally gave away your dates.
Oh, you kidding me?
Can we? Yeah, it was to a dog show. And I said, okay, can we go like a week earlier, a week later? They were like, well, we're pretty booked up. I said, all right, well, what are we looking at? And they're like, well, we can move you back to like the middle of January or move you back to like October. And I was like, no. And so I said, it was like right at the time that we were looking for a new place anyway. I said, it's cool. We're going to see what else is out there. I went to the Sheraton. I met with them, and I was so skeptical of it. And I told them flat out, I said, I don't think I'm doing this, but I'm entertaining this. And we sat down, and the things that changed me is that we were sitting there, and the woman who was our salesperson at the time, I was like, all right, well, your rooms are kind of all over. Yeah. In the past, you wouldn't let us put up signs even to say where things were. Yeah. How are we going to make sure that people can link between these rooms? She goes, yeah, that's a good question. And then she goes, I got it. You guys should get little dots like stickers, and you can put them on the ground and tell people to walk around like Pac-Man to make sure that they get to each of the rooms. And I said, you're going to let me put stickers on the floor? She said, yeah, why not? I said, okay. And we said, well, what about electrical? And she said, we will drill a hole through the wall for you to drop an electrical panel into this room. You'll have to make the panel itself, but we'll put the connection in the room for you. That way you'll be able to do whatever it is that you want. Wow. And I was like, really? And she was like, yeah. And she said, and my father-in-law is an electrician, so we went to talk with him, and he was like, yeah, they've got this line that taps directly to the outside. You do that, we can get enough power in there for everything for sure. Wow. And it was like, okay. And so I went back and I was like, yeah, they're not going to do that. And they just kept bending over backwards like that to the point that we finally said yes. Like some other stuff that they did, I was like, all right, we need to put our speakers somewhere. Where can we put the speakers? And she literally was like, you're not using the bar for anything, are you? I said, no, it's the bar. We can't close that, can we? She said, oh, yeah, we can. So you'll do the speakers in there. Okay. So, and like they keep doing stuff like that. A year later, we were looking for a place to start tabletop, and they were like, and she literally said, well, why aren't you using our lobby? The lobby where people walk in? And she said, yeah. And she goes, and I said, don't you think that some of the people that walk in, because at the time we weren't yet selling out the hotel, so don't you think that people that walk in that aren't for the show are going to be a little bit weirded out by people playing games right there? And she said, look, you guys are in every other room of the hotel all weekend long. If they walk in and don't want to be here, we might as well slap them in the face with the fact that you guys are here so they can ask for a refund before they check in, because that's way easier than them getting checked in, walking down the hallway, coming back and asking for a refund.
For sure. And, with parties going on and stuff like that, you get these guests would come in and be inundated by a bunch of crazy drunks playing games and, just loud people and, not that the convention is all
there will be someone that checks in, because Friday night we always get really close to selling out, but we don't personally sell out the show 100%. So we always get someone that's like an airline pilot or something that had come to the hotel, and you can watch them walk through the hotel with this look of like, what the hell is this the whole time? Because it's a bunch of just guys that are, so friendly and just so happy to be there and be together. It's the other unique thing about the show. A couple of years ago, like every year I have something that sticks out in my mind about the show as like this is the highlight. About probably 5 years ago, it was the security guard that pulled me aside as I was walking through. Goes, Dan, come here. I'm like, oh my God, what just happened? And this is the Sheraton security guard. And I'm like, all right, what's up? And he's like, what do you do to these people? I'm thinking, oh my God, what did we just do? Did we have some kick through a wall? What just happened? And he goes, they're all so nice. I was like, okay. And I said, okay, I was really worried there. And he said, no, every time we sell out the hotel, all night I go around yelling at drunks, calling the police to come and pick up people and stuff like that. He said, you guys have drunks. If I'm like, hey, you need to go back to my room, they come up to me, they say, thanks for watching out for me, man. Give me a hug, and I don't see him for the rest of the night. Said, I get hugs from your group, and they're serious, and they appreciate it, and then they go to their rooms, and I don't hear from them. It's amazing. And he said, like, I don't understand how this works, but I love it. And, like, that's kind of the vibe of it. So I don't know how I got there from Doc Ock. But anyway, Doc Ock has just grown from that little panel to bigger panels every year, and it flows through 600 amps and can light approximately, I think that we're doing about 250 to 300 games off of it now.
Wow. So, and you brought that panel in. Do you bring that panel in every year then?
Yeah, Yes, that panel lives in a storage area not too far from the show, and it is literally just used for the show. We've thought about renting it to other shows, but the problem is that, I mean, it's $20,000 worth of electrical equipment and I will tell you, my father-in-law is awesome. It's $20,000 at cost of electrical equipment because he built it for us at cost.
Wow.
I can't imagine how else we were going to do it, but it's awesome, and it's an awesome control thing for us too. The fire department who works with us actually loves it. They think it's genius because a couple of years ago, someone pulled a fire alarm in a guest room. It was actually a kid on accident completely during the show. It was a silent alarm. The hotel checked it immediately and didn't evacuate anybody or anything. The fire department still has to walk out to be like, what's going on?
Yeah.
They walked in and they fully knew that we were there. We had a couple of people at the show that started posting on Facebook, oh my God, fire department's here. They're shutting the show down. Whereas the actual story was the fire department was walking around with me going, man, you guys run this so smoothly. This is awesome. And he had a question when we got to the arcade hall. He was like, how is it that, like, he was like, if it was a real fire, how'd you make sure that everybody would leave? I was like, well, let me show you our panel. I walked him back to the panel. I said, this is our electrical grid. I can shut off every game in the entire place here in about 15 seconds when I just flip all these switches. And the fire guy looks at me and he goes, that's genius. He said, that's beyond what most places do. I said, well, it's super important to us to be able to both provide. Before that year, the last year at the Olympia, we started having some pinball machines with power drops. So they would reset. And we were like, and some people were very concerned that was damaging their games. I understand the concern as someone who worked in an arcade for many years and owns a bunch of those games. It doesn't actually damage them. It just is bothersome because it shouldn't be resetting. But you take that then and you go back and you say, all right, well, here's the new power grid and you won't have voltage drops, and we don't have voltage drops. And everybody's like, holy crap. And I mean, it's a stupid thing to put money into because what else am I going to do with that grid? Absolutely nothing. And like, it's one of those things too, where sometimes people have said to me, oh, well, you make money because you get all this stuff from the show. And I'm like, yeah, I have a $20,000 power grid that when the show's over, what am I going to do with that? Who wants that? Nobody. So it's a fascinating thing, but it's also, it's interesting how all this stuff has been put together to kind of enable people to do really cool stuff for the show. I sometimes refer to myself as I'm the enabler of the show. I'm the guy who says, like, you want to do this? I will figure out a way for you to do that. And that's the goal of me, basically, is to enable cool people to do cool stuff.
Cool.
Awesome. Hey,
I wandered all over in that response. I'm sorry about that. I hope that was interesting.
No, I don't remember the original question, so
it was about the power grid.
And I told you 5,000 different things, and
that's okay.
I finished with Doc, so it's like I did the question, but I don't know what in the hell I threw in the middle. So.
Full circle.
Yeah. All right,
well, my cruisers will destroy you.
Hey,
cool.
Can you give us like a quick rundown of the guests that are going to be there this year?
The announced guests that we have so far are Ed Freeze, who is the guy who created the Microsoft. Well, he was the guy who was the head of the Microsoft Xbox division when Xbox was started. He was the vice president in charge of basically gaming there for a long time. So he's going to be there. He also is now a huge arcade collector. And so if you are coming to the show and you haven't bought tickets for Friday night yet, strongly suggest getting them. One of the things that's going to happen is
How many tickets are left?
What was that?
How many Friday night tickets are left?
I announced yesterday that there was 25 left. I realized after I announced it was actually more like 35 left, but there's about 12-ish.
Hey, Dan, that's a good segue here. Can you tell people how to get a hold of those tickets?
Yeah, MidwestGamingClassic.com.
Awesome.
There's a big buy tickets button there. You go there. The Friday night tickets are on the Friday events page. Some people get confused because it looks like it's an official thing, but the Friday night thing is like a pre-party that we limit to only 300 people, and we open up a lot of the content for.
Yeah, so you get to play the games early and stuff like that are available.
Yeah, we open up 7 different content rooms as well as the museum and the arcade hall, and then we have other activities that we don't usually do. We have a pinball tournament. We actually have a couple pinball tournaments. We're looking at doing some other things like that. Ed Freeze is going to speak in whoever shows up, it could be with 2 people, but he one of the things that he's gotten into is preserving arcade history. And so he's gotten some of the rarest, very early games, and he's been preserving them. And he's actually going to be doing a informal chat about one that he has just gotten. And he's going I kind of know what he's going to be talking about already, and I'm trying to dance around it because I'm not supposed to say it. But he's going to be unveiling stuff that people don't know about this game at our show, so I think that's really cool. He's also going to be talking the next day about stuff. We've got lots of different people that are industry alumni coming. I've announced Brian Collins so far. Did I just say that wrong? I always get names screwed up. Let me double check here. I think it's Collins. He's the guy who did Arch Rivals, Rampage.
Okay.
I'm forgetting the third game. And he's going to be coming back to the show this year to Brian Colin, nix the X at the end, and Xenophobe. He also did General Chaos for the Sega Genesis, and he's been involved in tons of different Bally Midway games. He's going to be coming. The last that I've checked, we have about at least 10 more arcade alumni names to announce. We have at least probably 20 pinball alumni names to announce. Those kind of all come together in the last couple weeks, but we have a ton of them coming. And this year, one of the things that we've got too is that we're going to have a signing table where those people can actually stop and sit, and people who want to get something signed can get something signed, or that just want to stop by and say hi to someone can do that.
Did you say Eugene Jarvis is going to be there again this year?
I haven't said that yet.
Oh, okay. I thought I read that in an email or something.
I hope he will be. Eugene actually, so a couple of years ago, the show was completely overwhelming to me. And Eugene Jarvis, if you haven't met him, is just an amazing guy.
Yeah, he's great.
And I'm also a really bad liar in real life. And so it was the first year that we did the 10th. It was raining.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't realize exactly, the tent company didn't even realize exactly what that would mean for the tent. We thought that everything was sloped away, so we would be fine. Instead, there was little rivers running through the tent. It was terrible. People were freaking out. It was freezing. At the same time, we had an issue, a snafu with our pre-sale tickets that year. And so our pre-sale tickets that we had, the lines to get in, and it was totally my fault and in a lesser extent my mom's fault. I had to run to get change because we didn't have enough change. I'd been doing pre-sale tickets, and my mom, who was trying to help and doing her best, I didn't explain to her quite enough of what I wanted to do. And so I ran because we were almost out of change, and she started scanning tickets, and it went from me scanning a ticket every 10 seconds and basically keeping the line fine to her scanning a ticket approximately every 2 minutes. So when I arrived back 15 minutes after the show opened, there were people in line with pre-sale tickets that were so angry. And I got it because, you know what? They were in line waiting for 15 minutes, some of them in the rain, while people that didn't pre-buy tickets were walking by and paying cash and going right in. And so we got there, we broke the line, we did that. And then my wife, who manages Facebook for me, or for us while the show's going on, right after we break this line, is texting me going, should I start deleting these negative reviews that we're getting online? And I'm like, oh my God. And then right then Eugene Jarvis shows up. And he's like, hey, Eugene. And I'm like, hey, Eugene. And he's like, how's it going? And I was like, oh, Eugene, it's going great. And he's like, okay, what's wrong? And I was like, seriously. And I told him, I said, and that week, by the way, leading up to the show, there was all of this other crazy stuff. There's weird arcade laws or tournament laws in Wisconsin that we had just been informed of. And I had been threatened to get to go to jail if we were going to do stuff the way that we were supposed to do it, which I didn't think was illegal. And quite frankly, I don't know why it started with them saying that they would take me to jail, but that's where it started. And, we were the ones that told them what we were doing, so I wasn't trying to do anything sneaky. The next day, I was asked, hey, we just wanted to confirm the shirt order for you guys. We've got $25,000 worth of shirts coming. And I was like, holy hell, that's way more money than the show has ever made in all of its life combined. No. And so we had to, all these disasters, I was just, so stressed. And, yeah, then I've got Eugene just bubbling over, hey! I'm like, oh, my God. And we're walking down the hallway. And as we're walking down the hallway, he's like, okay, what's actually going on. And I said to him, I said, look, I'm trying to get everything to go right. I'm trying. It's just everything keeps going wrong. Everything that I'm doing just keeps going wrong. And he goes, oh, I've been there. He said, I know exactly what's going on. He said, you're so close to the details. It's like when I make a game, I see every flaw that the game has, and I want to fix those, and I can't make it perfect, and it drives me nuts. And he said, but I want you to do something. And I was like, yeah. He goes, take a step back and look around. And I was like, and we're still walking. I'm like, okay. And he goes, this is and I was like, okay. And he goes, this is one of the best fucking things in the whole fucking world. And I was like, wow. And all of a sudden I literally went like, you know what? If Eugene Jarvis is saying that this is that great, who am I to say that he's wrong? Done. And he just literally, he completely changed my mood on it. And he said, look, yeah, there's going to be a couple people that aren't going to be very happy. There's going to be 10,000 people here this weekend. You're going to hear from the 10 that aren't happy because you're the one close to the details.
The ones that complain are always the loudest, always. That's how it works.
Well, and a lot of the times some of the complaints are legit. Some of the complaints are really legit. And I like listening to complaints usually. But there's also times where there's nothing that I can actually do for the complaints.
Right.
And we as a show have a policy, and I was kind of losing my mind at the time, so I wasn't very good at this, but as a show have a policy that if you don't understand what the show is, I'm not going to fix it for you. A couple of years ago, I had someone who I was dropping off a flyer at a store in town. And I was asking the manager there, oh, can I put this up? And he goes, oh, yeah, but I don't know that I'm going to keep it up because I hate that place. Really? Why? Tell me what's wrong with it. He's like, oh, yeah, I went last year. It was terrible. Okay, why? Well, I talked to them before the show, and I said, are you going to have Time Crisis there? And they said, yeah. And they didn't have Time Crisis there. So it was terrible.
One game.
And I said, wait, who did you talk to? And he goes, oh, I talked to the guy in charge. And I said, really? Because I'm the guy in charge of the arcade games coming to the show. And I've never told anybody what games are coming to the show because arcade games are temperamental. So who told you that? And he's like, oh, well, it was someone who's in charge. I was like, who? Because there's an issue here. If anybody that I'm working with is telling you that, because that's a show policy, we don't say which games in case they change. Because I don't want someone to hear like, oh, you're going to have America's Most Haunted Pinball Machine there, and then America's Most Haunted Pinball Machine dies, and we have to take it off the floor, and then they're pissed that it's not there because I promised it. So we just don't promise. It's, show up and you get what you get. It comes out, oh, well, a bus driver told me it would probably be there. And I was like, well, I can't solve that. And he was like, yeah, well, you really need to think about how you're promoting it. And I said, you know what? Don't come.
And he goes, satisfied.
And he goes, what are you talking about? And I said, I can never promise to you that I'm going to have a Time Crisis machine there. I said, even if someone told me that we're going to have a Time Crisis machine at the show, if coming to the show, that machine breaks,
right,
I can't promise to fix it. I said, that's not something I can do. I said, you know what? You can go on Google and find a Time Crisis machine, and you'll have more fun if that's what you need to do there than coming to my show, because I will never promise that to you. I said, I will promise that if you come in with an open mind, you'll have a good time, but if you need one specific thing, go to a place that has it.
There are so many other things to do at the convention. I mean, at the show, right? It's like, oh my gosh, you have so much. It's overload. It's sensory overload. You have, the computer museum and the arcades and the pinballs, and then you have 2 floors of it, and then you've got, you had subs one year and snacks in one area, and then you had, you just have so much going on.
Yeah, well, and you'll love this because the end of the story is I literally was like, yeah, just don't come. It's fine. And he goes, well, if you do that to everybody, you're not going to make any money. I said, well, that's fine. I said, if I can't make money making a show with people that are happy to be there, that's fine. I just need to break even. That's all that I'm really trying to do. And I say, you know what, if you want to take down the flyer, that's fine. Thanks, I'll see you. And I start walking out, and he goes, I'm still probably coming. I said, okay, I'll see you there. And I was like, man, and that's the thing, is that we don't target those people that need that one thing, because I can't make those people happy. We target the people that realize this is a show about people. It's not actually about the games. It's about the people that love the games and playing them together. and sharing that love together and sharing that love with your kids and sharing that love with your family and taking your dad there. My dad was big into Star Wars for the 2600. And there's a part of the show that part of the reason that we do it, honestly, is because my grandfather, who introduced me to arcade games when I was little, who was no longer with us and had basically didn't get to see any of this, he showed me the love of gaming, and I want to share that. And everybody gets together and does that together. It's like some beautiful, amazing thing, and I'm honored that I get to be part of it. It's crazy to me that I'm the guy in charge.
I was just going to ask, what do you find most rewarding? I think you just answered that.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, and this was the year after, because the year after the Eugene Jarvis talking Dan off the cliff episode happened, we were basically like, look, we need to take stuff off of us again. And again, more volunteers stepped up. And last year and the year before, I have now a 7-year-old son. He was 5 at the time, and he really likes pinball and arcades and stuff like that. And I took him into the hall, and we hung out playing pinball and did it for an hour on Saturday. And literally, we didn't need to play any of the games that were like the most popular, but we found a way to walk from game to game, and it was magical. It was something that I never thought that I would get to do in the quote unquote real world with my son, because arcades were going away. They were gone before we had him. And it was like, this is what this is all about. It's sharing it with other people.
Yeah, I love the social aspect's always been a big part of what we talk about on the show, and having a convention or a show like this is just within proximity, right? I have to drive 5 hours to get there, but it's totally worth it because this is the biggest show within proximity, and then there's CAX and all these other, and there's a couple shows in Houston, a couple shows in Chicago, but yeah, so I really enjoy it. The other thing I was going to say one little anecdote to your Eugene Jarvis story is I didn't know he was coming to the show, and I didn't really care who was going to be there. I just knew that the show was fun, and I was going to meet up with my friends and whatever. And I had a buddy of mine that was going out there, and he's a big pinball fan. We went to Tom Taylor's deal, but I went to have lunch in the restaurant at the Sheraton, which is where you were setting up all the panels at that point. I don't know what you're going to do this year because they've redesigned that and it's totally cool. But I'm sitting there, I'm having lunch, and there's this guy talking, and I glance over there, and he's answering questions and talking about his company, and I'm like, that's Eugene Jarvis. And I had no idea it was going to be there. And I just recently, I think within a couple of years, acquired a Robotron cocktail. And even when I was in the 90s, when I was running all the emulation games, some of the collections had some videos of Eugene Jarvis talking about the games that he created. And so I had sort of become a fan of his without really thinking of it. And I was like, that's awesome that he's here. I was like, I had no idea that you were raking in some of these experts, and there's some pinball guys that are big, and forgive me, I don't know their names and stuff, but they're there almost every year. You have a lot of good connections, and I got to ask Eugene Jarvis a couple of questions. I got his autograph. It sits under the glass of my Robotron. Just a really genuinely nice guy. He let me interrupt and talk to him, take a picture with him. Just a super, super cool guy. So,
he's amazing. The first year that he came to the show, he's the only person that I have, because I only seem to remember one main thing from the show each year. He's the only guy that I have two memories from, because there was that he completely changed my mood. And a few years before that, it's the same type of thing, exact same hallway that the security guard pulled me over the following year. It was his first year at the show, and he's walking down the hallway there, and he sees me and goes, "Dan, come here. And I was like, okay. And again, I was thinking oh man, what did we screw up? I must have told him something, and this is not what he was expecting or whatever. So I was like, yeah, what's up? And he goes, I just have to tell you that I just played a Vectrix. That was the coolest thing. I can't believe that we have Vectrix this year. That is so cool. I love the Vectrix. All right, I got to go. I got to go play that thing again. See ya. And then he walked away. And I was like, all right. That's
There's
awesome.
A kid in a candy store.
A couple of years ago, we actually got someone donated to the show Vectrix, so we actually had a double of it. And I was like, you know what? I need to give this to Eugene. So we gave him a Vectrix a couple of years ago for all the help that he's done with the show. So, and yeah, I mean, the thing that's crazy about it to me is that the industry alumni love the show. And part of it, I think, is that for me, what I've told them is just like, if you come up here, most of them are in Chicago, so it's up here for them. I say, if you come up here, I just want you to relax and celebrate what you've helped accomplish. And I say, if you want to talk about it, cool. If you want to do other stuff with it, cool. But I just want you to come up and relax and have fun. And I have like so many different designers and artists and stuff like that have come to the show, and some of them my rule of thumb is all I want to do is just say that you've come to the show, and you don't have to even do anything if you don't want to. And so many of them are just like, oh my God, I love this thing, I want to do so much more for it. And so like Jeffrey Lee, creator of Qbert, a couple of years ago, we meet because of a party that I go to because of the show. That's an arcade party for someone in Chicago. And they introduced me to him, and he's like, yeah, I would love to come up. I haven't really been seeing. He does tons of stuff now involved in the industry. And it all kind of started because he started doing it at our show. And it's so unique that it's this place where people get to come see that and celebrate what they got to do. And so, yeah, I love it. I tell people this, and it's completely true. If I didn't love it, I wouldn't be doing it, because I could totally make more money working at McDonald's, like hourly, making burgers, than doing the show. The show doesn't really make money. If it was about making money, we would have given up on it years ago. It's about bringing people together. And I have so many friends and stuff like that I know because of the show. And it always makes me have some like little faith in humanity that we can have 10,000 people come together and basically have a good time for a weekend, where we just forget any differences and enjoy the things that bring us together.
That's great. So tell us one more time, when is the show, and tell us how we get tickets.
Sure. Show is April 7th, 8th, and 9th. The 7th is the VIG pre-party. If you don't get tickets in the next, 24 hours, I don't know if there'll still be tickets available. They've been selling really quickly for that. The 8th and the 9th are theoretically unlimited ticketed days, but if we got to capacity, we'd close. However, we haven't been really that close to that yet. You can get them at MidwestGamingClassic.com. If you want to go all the way, you /buy-tickets /. There's also other stuff there. There's some merchandise that you can get before the show, such as pre-order shirts and stuff like that. And there's also, you can get involved with the show. I'm pretty sure that you guys found me through there, and you can contact us and get involved. If you're a collector or someone out there that wants to share something with people, I welcome you to send a message. Chances are, if it's content related, I'm going to get back to you. It's me who replies to almost every email. And if it's not me, there's only one or two other people, and they're all awesome people. And we help get people to figure out how they can do stuff that is really going to show off different aspects of our hobby in new and creative ways. And we're excited to keep doing it. You had mentioned before, there's PAX, and PAX I always think of as a completely different show, because whether they want to be or not, they're an industry show. They're all about showing off, like, oh, hey, here's the brand new stuff that's coming. And we are a trade show for fans. We're the fan show that people get together and show off what they want, not what the industry wants them to buy, not what the next big thing is, but what they think is worth showing off. And it's everybody that comes together and makes it happen that makes it so special. Yeah, that's you got your repeat offenders like Eugene and Ben Heck, and now you have Freeze and Brian Colin, and it's going to be a good show. So thanks for evangelizing MGC here with us tonight. It was quite a pleasure to have you on the show. So. Well, thank you. And thank you guys for evangelizing it. It's again, if it wasn't for people like you guys that are willing to talk about it and say, hey, this is worth going to, the show would close. If we have a year where people go, you know what, this just isn't worth it for me, again, it's not corporate backed. It's not anything like that. The show will close. But every single year, we've had more and more people say, no, I want to help with this. I want to make this bigger and better than it ever has been before. And that is podcasts that are spreading the word. That's people like you guys that bring a game to share. That's people that put up a poster or a flyer at work and just put it on the wall, and maybe one other person hears about it. It's people that pre-order their tickets. It's people that don't pre-order their tickets and just show up at the show and have a good time. It's people that bring their kids. It's everything. We literally could not do it without every single person that's involved with the show. And that's what I think is so special about it. It's not like another show where, you know what, PAX is going to go on whether 10 people show up for it or not. Midwest Gaming Classic, if 10 people didn't show up for it, it would change the actual show. And that's insane, but it's so cool that together we created something like that.
Yeah, it's great. So we had a huge chat list today, so thanks for everyone that joined in the chat tonight listening. We really appreciate it. It's the double R's. That's Arcade Radio, arcaderadio.com. Please join us at any time at arcaderadio.com or email us at react@arcaderadio. You can always dial in on the game line, 612-548-GAME. And follow us on Facebook, the YouTube channel. You can follow us right on YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, Music, and SoundCloud, right, guys?
Something like that.
That's right.
So
this is where we dance.
This is where we dance. And Mark takes his pants off.
No pants.
Finally.
All right.